Blog Talk Radio.
Your experience begin right now. From high atop the mountains of British Columbia to you listening around the world, this is Spaced Out Radio. You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, on Twitter, @SpacedOutRadio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. You can follow us on Instagram, Dave Scott, SOR, or on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride as we are live on Spaced Out Radio.
Radio.com. As once again we come in from the frozen Canadian tundra, literally woke up to 2 inches of snow this morning, battle our way past the wild animals, sidestep Bigfoot, and enter Uncle Jimbo's cabin, stoke the fire, heat this place up, and broadcast to you live on this Monday night, early Tuesday morning if you're on the East Coast. Here at SOR, we do this thing 7 days a week. We want to be your official one-stop shop when it comes to the crypto world. Supernatural, paranormal, ufological, and so much more. We want to thank legendary guitar god Ron Bumblefoot Thal for his kick-ass theme song for Spaced Out Radio. You can find his new album, Little Brother Is Watching, by going to spacedoutradio.com. Hey, if you're a social media junkie like I am, you can follow us on Twitter, @SpacedOutRadio. You can give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show, and you can ask to join our Spaced Out Radio group as well as our other group, Podcast Central. On Instagram, I can be followed at Dave Scott, SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. And, of course, our website is a new look, spacedoutradio.com. If you head to our website, spacedoutradio.com, you can check out Cat's Corner. Psychic Catherine Fallman will answer one lucky listener submitted question per week. Tonight's show is brought to you by Rivulet Reiki and Readings. They provide healings in person or at a distance. Spaced Out Radio listeners receive a 10% discount on pricing. PurplePlates.com. Help heal your body, mind, and soul. Drop into their site and heal yourself today. 80,000 people a month read the new Agora newspaper. Find out what's happening around the world regarding politics, health, supernatural, paranormal, and so much more. And if you have an iPhone, download the Spirit Story Box. Spirit Story Box, the official ghost hunting app of Spaced Out Radio. At this time, we want to welcome in our listeners taking part in the Spaced Out Radio chat room, along with Paranormal Into the Night and Paranormal Forum. We've done plenty of Bigfoot shows on SOR over the last year and a bit, with researchers sharing their findings and theories. But tonight we're taking this in a little bit of a different direction, which, actually, I'm pretty excited about. The research usually done in the forests, swamps, and mountains across North America aren't usually quite scientific. However, Edie Caito's way of researching is so much different that it really makes you wonder if there is a spiritual connection between the big hairy beast we call Sasquatch and we as humans. Edie does her research in the simplest of ways. She sets out what she calls a gifting site, and she's getting action. It's amazing what Bigfoot will do for toys, bananas, and all sorts of treats. Edie is the author of Indiana Bigfoot, The Beautiful Mind. She will tell us her connection to Sasquatch, as well as the connection and sightings both her husband and daughter have had with the creature. It's actually quite an amazing and beautiful story. We're glad to have her on the air tonight. We found Edie as she is part of the Facebook chat room that follows us on a nightly basis called Paranormal Into the Night. If you want to join their group, you could search them out on Facebook, Paranormal Into the Night. At this time, we bring in Edie Caito to Spaced Out Radio Land. Edie, thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm happy to be here.
You know what I loved about learning about your story, and this is the big reason why I wanted to get you on with us tonight, is you're not a scientist. You're technically not a researcher. You're just an ordinary human being, like many of us, who've had some extraordinary experiences with Bigfoot, and you decided to do something about it. I need to know your story. The rest of our audience needs to know your story. How did this come about?
Well, if you would have asked me 3 years ago if Bigfoot existed, I would laugh in your face, to be completely honest. I had kind of seen a couple shows on television, finding Bigfoot and things like that. I would literally laugh at people out in the woods knocking on the trees and howling and whatnot. So I was the furthest from being a believer that you can imagine. Although my husband, myself, and my daughter had a paranormal group because our daughter is extremely gifted. She has been since she was a baby. But we were, just interested in the paranormal field in general. And, having a daughter with those experiences, it made it very personal for people that we worked with, having a child who could work with their children and whatnot. So that's where it all started. And I had an experience out in Morgan Monroe State Forest in Martinsville, Indiana. It was a paranormal experience, which this is a whole other show. But it led us in the direction of being in the forest every single weekend. We were driving the back roads and researching for this book that I'm still writing. And one night it was, probably between 11, 12 o'clock, we were going down a partial gravel, partially paved road near the backwoods of the forest. And all of a sudden, just out of the blue, my husband hits the brakes. I look over at him like, what are you doing? And the man was white as a sheet. And I'm like, honey, what's wrong? What's going on? And he goes, did you see that? I said, what, the bat? Because there was a bat kind of flying around in the headlights. And he said, no. He said, what just crossed in front of the car? And I'm like, what was it? He said, I don't know. I don't know. And he just kept repeating himself over and over and over, that wasn't right, it wasn't right. And I said, well, what did you see? He said, it was huge. He said it looked like Mighty Joe Young or something. And I looked at him, I said, are you kidding me? And he said, no. And I knew at that point in time he was dead serious. So we had come on home, and I got online, and I started looking, and I was trying to find something that was shaped like he was seeing, because he said it was kind of down on all fours. He said lower in the back, taller on the top, and it was well above the hood of our Chevy. So it had to have been 7, 8 feet tall, standing. And I found a photo. It was a deer cam or trail cam photo. So it was kind of dark, but yet you could see the creature was kind of illuminated. And I said, is this what you saw? And he's like, yes, that's what I saw. Only it was a little bigger. What is that? I said, that's a Sasquatch. And he just shook his head, no. They don't exist. And so after a couple of weeks, it was really, really weighing on him, and he had contacted someone through Facebook. His name is Leroy Nail, and he is the head of the Indiana Bigfoot Research Organization. And we met with him and his wife down in the forest and explained what had happened. And they just kind of stood there and they nodded and they smiled the whole time and explained to us that there had been a sighting within a mile from there just 2 weeks before. And so they took us around the forest and they showed us things that, being in the forest so much, we hadn't even really noticed. Tree breaks that were in the very middle of the forest when there's no damage around them, and big X's that were built, and these big, like, teepee-type structures in the middle of the forest and in areas where humans don't even really go. And from that moment on, we didn't just immerse ourselves in it. We dove in full force with this. Because the more we got thinking about it, the more we were starting to realize, okay, we've had experiences. We just kind of blew it off as, oh, gee, I wonder why that tree just broke in half and fell for no reason. And those strange scream-type noises we were hearing.
Oh, they're eerie.
Yeah, they are eerie. And so we really started putting it together. And then that's when we started going out with Leroy and his wife. And, we did some research to see what type of activity had been in that area, what kind of reports had been made. And there hadn't been a lot at that point. We had heard more from Leroy and his wife as far as reports that had been made to them, but not, like, released onto the Internet. And so we just started going out to the forest and everything, and I just was not a fan of watching Finding Bigfoot and these other shows where people would go traipsing out into the middle of the woods and hollering and whooping and knocking and waiting. And I had found some videos online of a woman who does this gifting. This a lot of Bigfoot people refer to it as habituation. And I liked the way her approach was. Her approach was simple. I leave things for them. They trust me. They leave things for me. They come around and things like that. And I was like, this is how I want to approach it. My husband said, it's not going to work. He was, totally, he's always the skeptic. And that is a good thing, to have somebody who's skeptical. But he did not think it would happen. He didn't think I would ever make a connection or they would ever take anything that I left for him. And he is singing a different tune. He is totally singing a different tune now.
Edie, when people say that they have heard Sasquatch, many experts go out there and they say, how do you know, if you're not an outdoors person, that you didn't hear a fox or a coyote or a cougar or a bear? What made you believe that this was Sasquatch science? Because there's always the skeptic out there, much like your husband, who is always thinking there, without hearing the information themselves firsthand, that they already know that what you're describing is not a Sasquatch.
Well, that was one of the things that I took to heart. And like I say this a lot, I'm not out there now. I'm not out there to prove to anyone else that they're there because I know they're there. And I'm not one of those people that's out for 15 minutes of fame and I want to be on television or anything. I came home and I started researching. I listened to recordings of any predators that we have here in Indiana, as well as deer calls, deer distress noises, the way foxes sound when they're either distressed or when they're playful or when they're calling, and the same with coyotes. And I wanted to listen. I wanted to hear what these animals sounded like. And when I do hear a Bigfoot call, there is no doubt in my mind what I'm hearing. Because some of the things that we have heard have literally they just go right through you to the core. You feel the sound. It's absolutely amazing.
Mm-hmm. And you know what? I have heard Sasquatch. I heard it about 5-6 days after I had my own sighting with the two creatures.
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell you this, hearing the roar/scream, I don't know how else to put it,
mm-hmm.
it was way more intimidating than seeing the creature firsthand. And I was only about 85 feet away from it.
Yeah.
But let me ask you this. Did you notice, and I don't know if it's the same down there, but the one thing I noticed about the roar up here, and there were 4 of us who heard it, there was no echo. And animals in our area where we had the sighting, you could hear them echoing right through the mountains. But when the Sasquatch roared, there was no echo. Have you noticed that as well?
Not until you just now mentioned it. No, I have not heard an echo. And we run digital recorders every time we're out. So when we hear a call, we can always go back and listen. And now that you mention it, there has never been an echo. I have one recording where we had found an area near a cave, and we had gone back at night to run the recording and just kind of sit. And these creatures carried on for almost a full 25 minutes. Back and forth, there were screams, there were howls, there were knocks, there were whoops, and it was back and forth and back and forth. And we were sitting down in the middle of where 3 pretty big ridges came together, and we were down below. So in that position, you would hear echoes very, very easily.
Yes.
But we didn't.
Yes.
And I even have it recorded. No, you're right. There were no echoes whatsoever.
Mm-hmm. And the reason why I researched it, because that stood out to me. And I went on YouTube, much like every other amateur researcher does when I had my experience. And I went on YouTube, and I played as many Bigfoot sounds, or so-called Bigfoot sounds, that I could hear.
Mm-hmm.
And I played every wild animal in my area, from foxes to wolves to coyotes, cougars, bears, deer, everything. And it is such a distinct sound
mm-hmm.
that it will literally put every hair on your body standing up within a millisecond the minute you hear it.
Yeah. Absolutely, it does.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no echo.
No, there's no echo, and that's what trips me out.
And that is, and I honestly, as many recordings as I've listened to, and as many times as we've heard them, I mean, it's to the point when we're in the forest and we hear a scream, it's not like, make sure the recorder's on. It's more like, yep, there they go. They're over in that direction. Okay, it sounds like they're moving in that direction. It's so matter of fact with us now. I used to be afraid. I used to be very, very afraid of them. And there was
mm-hmm.
one night that changed that completely. And I'm no longer afraid.
Have you noticed that when you are near them, and I noticed this too when I had my experience, because all of a sudden it's like you have this psychic connection with them if you are in tune. It's weird. And it may sound far-fetched to a lot of people who are listening for the first time in regards to this, or never had the experience, or don't have that spiritual connection. But if you notice now that when you go into the forest, or even days before you go in, you can already feel them?
Yes, that I have noticed. When we go in on certain evenings, sometimes as we're, just ascending the very first hill going into the area, I'll look at my husband and I'll just tell him, I've got that feeling again. And he'll say, that feeling in your gut? I said, yeah. He said, me too. And it never fails. When we feel that, when we go in, we always have an experience. it's almost like they're preparing us or letting us know, hey, we know you're coming, and, we're going to be in touch.
That is exactly how I feel, because I know my next contact is supposed to be this late spring. I know where it's supposed to happen. I know who is supposed to be with me. I've already been told by whoever, whether it's a spirit guide, angels above, Bigfoot themselves, no weapons, no guns, nothing. They will keep the area safe. And I've already been told it's a 3-day process where day 1, they're not going to show themselves to me, but I'll know they're there. Day 2, they will get a little closer, but I may not see them. The chances of me seeing them are slim to none. But day 3 is supposed to be the time where we get close. Have you had something like that type of feeling?
No, I have not. The thing is I was very skeptical about people who, say that they have communicated in such a way that you're talking about. But I've always listened. I don't discount people because people aren't just crazy by nature and make things up. Yeah, there are some people out there that are a little Looney Tunes, but the majority of people aren't going to make something like this up for attention or anything. And, I listen very closely to these stories. Now, though it hasn't happened to me, very recently it happened to my daughter. And I believe the reason they did this was because of the doubts that I had. And we were out at the gifting site, and this was probably about 4 or 5 weeks ago. And we were sitting there, and all of a sudden my husband walks up with a deer antler in his hand, where they had discarded some of the food wrappers in a distinct pattern, and he was following them, collecting them, and he stopped, and right there in an open area was this antler. So he comes carrying it back, and my daughter shook her head. She goes, I can't believe that. And I'm like, what? She said, when we were here last weekend, she said, I thought to myself, how cool would it be if they brought Mom a deer antler? And I looked at her, I said, are you kidding me? I said, you are not kidding me. She said, no, Mom, I swear to God. And that's when I realized, okay, they are communicating. They heard her. Now, I know they have listened to me because I have asked them for things verbally, and they have responded, but not so much as like mind speak, but with physical objects. For instance, when I was going out here, it was late summer, early fall, and I was worried because they had not been taking anything from the gifting site. And so I just kind of stood out there, and a lot of people would probably think I was nuts if they walked by and saw me standing in the middle of the woods talking to no one, but I do it all the time. And I said, you guys have got to let me know you're okay. I said, I need to know. I need to make sure nobody is hurt, that you guys haven't left. I just need to know you're okay. So I turned around. I start back up the path toward the gifting site, and there is a turkey feather laying by the gifting site. And I was like, oh, wow. Well, this wasn't here before. Just kind of picked it up, didn't think anything about it. Got back out on the main trail, and there were 2 extremely large tail feathers from a turkey, and they were laying right in the middle of the path, one end to one end, so straight up and down. That's when I knew, right then and there, they not only were listening to me, they were nearby listening to me, and they immediately calmed my fears. My husband thought, being the skeptic he was. Well, when we came back the following week, there was a 3rd turkey feather in my gifting site sticking straight up out of one of the bricks that I used to keep the lid on the container. So that kind of shut him up. He had no doubts about it after that.
We are talking with author Edie Caito tonight on Spaced Out Radio. We are talking Bigfoot and the intimate interaction she is having with this creature through a gifting site in her home state of Indiana. Edie, I'm going to get you to hold on. Hard to believe we're already into our first break here, and I've got a ton of questions for you, and I know our audiences in the chat rooms do as well. So I'm going to get you to hold on right now, and we are going to go to our first break of the night just a few seconds early. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott. We'll be right back after this break.
This is Patrick Webster Small, and I'm going to bring you the Webster Phenomena right here on Spaced Out Radio, Monday night at 8 p.m. Pacific Time. Every week, I'm going to bring you the freshest information on the globe. I'm bringing you guys the truth, extraterrestrials in the sky, prophecy, chemtrails, rainbow spot, the seventh angel, biblical skies, ancient gods, ghosts, spirits, see it, hear it. So let's do this every Monday night. I'll see you back here at 8 p.m. Pacific Time.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. With their money-back guarantee and the many benefits, how can you afford not to get one? Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com for mind, body, and spirit, and expect a miracle.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Did you know that Spaced Out Radio is live 7 days a week? This is Jim Tyson, host of Spaced Out Weekend. You can listen to my show, Spaced Out Weekend, every Saturday and Sunday night starting at 1 a.m. Eastern, 10 p.m. Pacific. On Spaced Out Weekend, we like to delve into the paranormal, even the newest technologies that have enhanced modern-day ghost hunting. And sometimes, we'll get a little creative and dabble into the crypto world, UFOs, and much, much more. So tune in at www.spacedoutradio.com on the weekends and listen to me, Jim Tyson, on Spaced Out Weekend.
Hi there, this is Jolene with Rivulet Reiki and Readings, and I want you to relax. Let me help you chill out and get in touch with your body, mind, and soul. In this busy world, sometimes we need to let go, and this is where I can help. Visit my website, rivuletrr.wix.com/rivuletrr&r, or my Facebook page, Rivulet R&R, to set up an appointment for relaxation, Reiki, or readings, no matter where you are. Spaced Out Radio listeners will also receive 10% off their first visit. It's time for you to make time for you.
The Spaced Out Radio Network can be found at spacedoutradio.com. Hi there, this is Dave Scott. Here you can join the latest on our weekly shows and news from around the world involving UFOs, cover-ups, cryptids, ghosts, and more. Read articles from our very talented staff and check out our weekly tarot card reading from psychic Catherine. You can also sign up for free on our forum and tell us about your experiences. spacedoutradio.com. Always live, always interactive.
Ready to find out what's flying up in the sky? Me too. Hi there, this is Rich Giordano. Please join me every Sunday night at 7 for the AZ UFO Show. It's a fast and compelling 2-hour show on UFOs, extraterrestrials, conspiracy theories, and much more. Every week we will have great guests and great topics to try and answer the ultimate question, are we alone in this universe or not? So tune in to the AZ UFO Show with me, Rich Giordano, right here on the Spaced Out Radio Network at spacedoutradio.com.
Would you like to connect with Dave and his guests? Learn more at spacedoutradio.com for the latest news, features, photos, and articles. Spacedoutradio.com is where you can stay up to date on what's happening around the world and up in the stars. And now, back to Dave Scott.
Welcome back to the second half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Thank you so much for joining us on Spaced Out Radio. Tomorrow night on the show, Anthony Kenyatta will join us. We had him on a few months ago and talking about Harold the Haunted Doll. Well, he's going to be talking to us about talking to the dead tomorrow night on Spaced Out Radio. Hey, if you want to follow us on Twitter, you can do so at Spaced Out Radio. You can give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show, and you can ask to join our private Spaced Out Radio group as well as Podcast Central. On Instagram, I can be followed at Dave Scott, SOR. On YouTube, you can subscribe to our channel, Spaced Out Radio Show, and our new look website is spacedoutradio.com. Tonight, we are talking Bigfoot with Edie Caito. Her latest book, which can be found on Amazon, is Indiana Bigfoot, The Beautiful Mind. Now, Edie, we bring you back on. Thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Now, during the break, you told me some exciting news. You got some brand new evidence that is really, really fascinating. And the reason why it's fascinating is we see so much evidence where people proclaim they have hair. We've seen foot casting prints. But you have casted bite marks.
Yes.
Explain this story to us.
Well, in gifting, I do leave food, various things. And I recently... And I would like to get into more of the things, how much they enjoy some of the things that I leave and, my personal take on habituation, because I know there are a lot of people out there who do not believe in what I'm doing. But anyway, I most recently found out that they love drinks. They love juice. Any kind of juice that I leave them, they will devour. So I had left these, it's a Welch's organic grape juice, and they're in small bottles, but the bottles are extremely thick. And I don't like leaving things out that do leave a smell, because that does attract, more scavenger-type animals. Well, with these, the bottles are very, very thick, so there was no scent or smell to them at all. And they took to them right away. If they can't get the caps off, which a lot of times, if you imagine how large their hands are compared to a very small cap, it's probably awkward. They just bite a hole in it, suck it out, and toss it down. Well, one of the bottles I had collected, they had taken the entire bottom of it and put it in their mouth and bit down. Well, I can't even bend these with my hands, and they had completely left an upper and a lower bite mark. You could see the arch, and I was feeling along where the top teeth were, and I could feel the ridges of the teeth. So I was telling Leroy, I said, we have got to cast this. So we did. A few weeks ago, we went out, we sat there. It was kind of a difficult thing to do, but we were able to cast it. We used the dental casting that they use, like when you're getting a bridge or getting dentures. And so it really came out nice, and I've got a perfect set of front teeth, one of which is chipped. They have a chipped front tooth. And so I was on Facebook. It was mid last week, and I was talking to a researcher. His name's Jody Cook. He does Bigfoot research as well as dogmen. He's got a book out about the Ohio grassman, about Bigfoot, about the dogmen. And he had found a pretty large canine tooth, not a dog tooth, but the actual canine tooth itself, pretty large in a creek bed, and he had posted a picture and asked people what they thought, and I told him, I said, Jody, I said, you know what I think? I said, because I have tooth holes in aluminum cans that are that size. And I also told him about the front teeth that we had recently casted. Well, a friend of his, an associate of his, had saw our conversation, and he messaged me. And evidently this gentleman is one of 3 scientists that were working on this project around Mount St. Helens. And I'd give you the name of it, but it's like 8 sentences long and uses words that are so long it's unbelievable. But anyway, what they did is they were collecting what they call these bone piles. these bone piles that they were finding from different animals. The bones were picked clean and completely just beautiful, but they were stacked or either laid in the order to which they were in the animal. And so they took these in, and they were looking for the bite marks, the teeth marks, and things like that. And they were able to match up a majority of the teeth to, say, a wolverine or other small scavengers. But they were the tooth prints that kept coming up over and over again that did not match anything out there. They couldn't match it to any predator. So they started comparing them, and they were finding that they were pretty much uniform in size, right around the same size. And that paired with some foot castings they had taken and everything, they were able to say that this was what they called an unclassified humanoid, because the teeth were very much like what would be an ape, but yet they were very much like a human in the same way, only the mouth was much wider and not as deep as ours. So he told me, he gave me a link, he said, check this out. He said, take some measurements and compare them to what we have. So I made some notes. I went in, read the paper, which is fantastic, and they are presenting this the 26th of this March in Washington this is a mainstream scientific conference. This has nothing to do with the crypto world. It has nothing to do with the paranormal. So this is big for them to be presenting at a mainstream scientific thing. So I got it out. I got out my measure tape, and I sat there and I measured these incisors that I have. And the exciting thing is that these incisors measured within 0.3 millimeters of the ones that he has. So they are dead on the same size. They're the same shape, as they call it. They're like shovel shaped. They kind of have a scoop on the inside, back behind the teeth. And I also measured the holes that I have that were done by the canine tooth itself, and theirs were measuring 8.6 millimeters, and mine measured 8 millimeters. And like with the incisors, theirs were, they had one that was 9.6 millimeters, one that was 10.16, and mine measured 10.13. So my tooth marks that I have and the casting that I have matches the ones that they have found there around Mount St. Helen, that they have no explanation for, with the exception of this being a very large humanoid creature. So to me, I don't do what I do scientifically. I don't put up cameras. I don't try to trap them. I don't try to trick them, and they trust me. But I picked up that bottle. I made that cast because I wanted to have a cast of their teeth. And then this falls in my lap, and it's huge. It's really, really huge, because I have actual scientific evidence of them existing here in Indiana now.
That is an incredible story, because this just fell right into your lap. It's almost like you were looking for some sort of sign, proof. Yes, we can have the gifting site. Yes, we can have something that moves by a tree, and maybe we see it out of the corner of our eye and we think we see what we thought we saw. But when you have actual bite marks, would there still not be DNA on that cup or that juice box as well?
Yes, absolutely. I have dozens and dozens and dozens of pieces that would have DNA on them. Dozens of them. And like I said, I haven't done this to go out and prove to anyone that they exist, because, like I said, I know they're there. But to have something like this kind of fall in my lap with such an extensive paper, this extensive research that they did, and just to simply this guy to say, hey, go in there, check your measurements with mine, just do this for me. And I did, and I'll be darned if they didn't match up. I mean, I got chills from head to toe, and it's just kind of, letting me know, even though they're there, I just gave you proof that they're there. And so it's really, really exciting.
And the best part about it is your research is matching research from 2,000 miles away in the Mount St. Helens area of Washington State. So there's no way that you can run from Washington State all the way over to Indiana to make sure that you drop this evidence right exactly where your hidden place is, where you make contact. So that is incredible in itself.
It is. It just, I mean, I couldn't be happier. I love it when things like this happen. Like when they leave me something that, you know, there's no doubt, like one of the balls that I had left for them. I didn't think that they had played with it until I went to pick it up, and I noticed it was flat. Then I picked it up and looked at it in my hand, and I'm like, oh, my God, there was a permanent hand indented into the rubber on this ball. Permanent. They squeezed this ball with one hand so hard that the air came out of it, but their handprint stayed embedded in the ball. Those are the kind of things that totally blow my mind, because you can see the size of the thumb, you can see the size of the fingers, and even my husband, being a really big man with big hands, could not get his hand all the way around the ball. So it's things like that, and things like the teeth mark matching up, the teeth casting matching up, and things like that just, they never cease to amaze me. They're just such incredible creatures, hence the name The Beautiful Mind, because they are so extremely intelligent, and I don't think people give them that credit. You know, I mean, look at the Sasquatch commercials on television for jerky. They make them look out like big dumb animals, and they are I mean, if they can hide from us, I think they've got a little bit more brain power going on than we do.
Well, they are the reigning hide-and-seek champion. We will say that.
They absolutely are.
We are talking with Edie Caito tonight on Space Out Radio. You can pick up her book, Indiana Bigfoot, The Beautiful Mind, on Amazon.com if you want to pick it up. Edie, I have a couple questions coming out now from our audience. The first one, we're going to start with Bill Hauser from Space Out Radio's chat room. Earlier in the show, you had mentioned the deer antler and that your daughter had kind of put a telepathic message out to the area. And the next thing you know, a deer antler appears at your gifting site. Do you believe then, and this is Bill's question, that telepathy with Sasquatch works?
I am going to say yes. Beforehand, I would have said no. But I'm the kind of person that if I see it or if I see enough evidence of it, then I'm going to be more likely to believe it. And you know, I've heard a lot about mind speak. I've heard a lot about communicating in that way, and I know humans can do that as well. With my daughter being gifted, so I know there's no doubt. And the way I think of it, when people say, you know, there are doubters out there that call people like me woo-woos, saying that we're crazy, and people who believe in mind speak and the telekinetic energies and things of that nature, that we're all crazy. But I look at it in a scientific way that we humans use so little of our brain. Imagine if we used, say, 25%, 30%, 50%. Could you imagine what we could do? But what if we used 100% of our brains? We'd probably be capable of shape-shifting. We'd probably be capable of super speed. And we would be very, very much able to communicate with our minds. To me, I believe that they use much more of their brain than we do, hence the communication. Since this happened to my daughter, there's no doubt now that I know that they can communicate that way.
Mm-hmm. I feel that way too. And I'm going to be honest with you, since I had my Bigfoot experience and since I have opened up spiritually, I am in total agreement with you that Bigfoot is so intelligent it can communicate telepathically. I'm a firm believer in that. Yeah, exactly.
And you don't have to be a crazy person. You can put a scientific, logical explanation to that. Because, if you think about that, the capacity of the human brain and what little we use, if we use more, it would be scientifically possible for these things to happen. So to me, I'm looking at it, yes, I see it very much spiritually, and I see that they are very gifted beings, but I also see that can be from a scientific point of view. But until somebody has one that can be watched, that can be monitored, that can be tested, nobody's going to be able to say for sure. So we share our experiences. And that's the only way to do this. That's all we can do is share our experiences, our theories, and just work from there, because there's no cut and dry science. There's no black and white when it comes to the Bigfoots.
I have a couple questions from Jay Adams in Paranormal Forum that follows us.
Okay.
In your area, has Bigfoot been seen there for a long time?
Yeah, we have the earliest report that we have ever taken verbally. Leroy took one not long ago from a woman who had an experience in 1965. That was 50 years ago. That was the year I was born. And that was in this area. Now, I know the particular area, the forest where we're conducting our research, or where I play with the Bigfoots is what I call it, because to me it's not really research. It's just kind of a trust thing. That forest wasn't a forest. It was built in the 1930s because the land, they tried to settle on the land. It wasn't good because there's a lot of limestone. So there's rocks and there's caves and cliffs and whatnot. So they decided to build a forest. So that forest began in the 1930s. So, like I said, the earliest account that we have in the area where I am that we know of right now is 1965. So I guess you could say, yes, they have been there a while. And we have them since after that in the 1970s through, Larry Batson, actually, who's a kind of an animal expert. A lot of people know him in this general area. He had experiences in the area in the 1970s. So, yes, it has carried through, and it seems like it's been pretty consistent from then till now.
Follow-up question from Jay Adams in Paranormal Forum. Have you ever tested out music and their reaction to music?
We have. Really, I know my daughter and I did like a solo evening out one night by ourselves, which freaked my husband out. He doesn't like us being back there by ourselves, but as I said before, I feel safe. This particular clan makes me feel safe. I feel comfortable. We had a radio, and we were playing music. Of course, we were singing and being goofy and dancing around, and I know we were being watched. We felt them there, but we didn't really get a lot of reaction. What we have gotten reaction to have been lights. And the first time we had a reaction, my husband and I were camping. We were playing with this little device. It looks kind of like just a little bit bigger than a pen, like those little lights doctors look in your eyes with. But this is actually a laser grid. And paranormal researchers, we use these to like shine down long, dark hallways. And there's bunches and bunches of little dots of light. So that way, if anything breaks the plane, you're able to see it. So we were playing with this, and he was shining it up on the trees, and it just kind of makes the trees sparkle. And then we were doing like circular things, and he was just playing. We did that for about 10 minutes. He turned the thing off, put it down, and all of a sudden we heard what sounded like a juvenile, maybe 20 feet behind the tent, start screaming. It was literally pissed off that we stopped playing with the light. And, of course, at the time, this was before we had a lot of experiences, so it was pretty unsettling. It was pretty terrifying because it was so close. And I've used light in an experiment most recently. I got one of these little disco ball lights, just a little tiny tabletop one. Took it down the trail, put it on a stump, and put there were 5 bananas, put them on the stump because they love bananas, and put the light on, turned it on, and came back. And we had heard a scream come from back that direction, and I'm like, I wonder if he's excited about the light or if he's excited about the bananas. So Leroy and I went back. Sure enough, we walk up, and one of the bananas had been broken off, just like we humans do. It was just snapped off and gone. And I was so tickled and so thrilled that they came close. Even though I had a group of people with me, they trusted me enough to come and take food. And so later on in the night, after everybody else left, my husband and I went back to, gather the light and everything. And what was left of the bananas, there was another one taken, and the rest of the bananas were turned upside down, and they were in the shape of an arch on top of this little tiny stump. That completely blew my mind, that they turned the bananas upside down and put them in an arch. I don't know of any raccoon or possum that could do that.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I mean, you have to look at that and say, you know what, if it's a scavenger like a raccoon or a possum or something like that, they're not going to place it back. They're going to scatter it all over the forest bed.
Mhm. Yeah, and they're going to take them all. They're not just going to break one off politely and say, oh, I think I shall, and walk off with one. The Bigfoots that I deal with there, I can leave a bunch of food, and they will only take what they need. They will not they will not come and clean me out. But they have been known to do that before we've had snowstorms. They will come and take everything. But generally, they will take 1 or 2 things and leave the rest.
That makes sense. That makes much sense. We are talking with Edie Caito tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Indiana Bigfoot, The Beautiful Mind is her book, which can be found on Amazon.com if you want to check it out. Edie, you mentioned earlier that you know the likes and the dislikes of Bigfoot in your area that you are having a connection with.
Yes.
What are those likes and dislikes?
Well, I've experimented, with different types of food. I try to give them organic things as much as possible. And they love bananas. Those are one of their favorite foods. They don't like them unless they are starting to turn brown, because they will leave them until they turn brown. When they turn brown, then they will take them. Of course, they love apples, pears. They like tuna pouches. Of course, I've left a smoked summer sausage, a beef summer sausage before. Of course, they loved that. One of their favorite things, though, I have found are animal crackers. I had bought a large bag. They're pretty inexpensive, and they're really low in sugar. So I had bought a large bag as a treat and had left it for them. Weeks had gone by, the bag was gone, and this is at a point when I was realizing that I was spending so much time gathering the trash in this area that's really difficult to maneuver through. Very difficult, because they have so many trees pushed over and so many things built and so many X's and so many trees that have been brought in and everything to kind of block this area off, that, going through here and picking up the trash and whatnot is pretty daunting. So I told them one day, I said, listen, guys, I said, if you can kind of keep the trash a little closer, that might help. I know you love watching me do this, and I'm sure you're laughing, but it'd make it easier. And I said, if it's something that you want more of, bring the wrapper back and put it in the gifting site. Bring it back to me, and I'll know you want more. So the bag had been gone for 4 or 5 weeks. I come back to the gifting site the next weekend, and there was the empty bag of animal crackers. So they were telling me That was one of their favorites. And they also like fruit pie. I will get the little miniature pies. Instead of full-size ones, I get the miniature ones. And they love the blueberry, the cherry, and the apple. And I've given them peach once. And let me see, I tried pecan and pumpkin and sweet potato, and they do not like those. They will let me know by leaving what's left after a bite or two's taken. They will just leave it. So I know that. But they love, love, love when I leave them balls of any kind. I started by leaving these little rubber spiky balls that have lights in them, and those have disappeared. I've left, several different sizes of little rubber balls that are filled with air. They will play with them until they go flat, and they bring them back, or they will just rip them in half and bring them back. And I've left the basketball. They were able to flatten that, too.
Mm-hmm.
But they love the balls. They disappear, and I don't see them again unless they get tired of it or it's flat, and they bring me one to basically say they need a new one. And the only thing they did not like is I left a stress ball. And I don't know if you've ever tried to tear one of these in half. It's impossible. They tore this thing into about 6 pieces. And even after was torn, even after it was torn up, my husband tried to tear a piece and could not. If that gives you
they're tough.
And if that gives you an idea of their strength, that really, really blew my mind when I found that one. So I made a mental note, no more foam balls at all whatsoever. They don't like those.
We are talking with Edie Caito tonight on Spaced Out Radio. We're talking Bigfoot. Indiana Bigfoot, The Beautiful Mind is her book. It can be found on Amazon. What a beautiful story. Edie, you have an amazing, amazing story here to share, and I'm so glad that I brought you on the air. I definitely can tell that in the next hour we're not going to have enough time, and I hate when that happens. But I'm going to put you on hold right now. We are going to go to break here at the top of the hour. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave.
The Phoenix Lights, Roswell, secret military aircraft, flying saucers. Let's check out the sky together. Hi, this is Rich Giordano, host of the AZ UFO Show right here on the Spaced Out Radio Network. Every Sunday night at 7, we hit the airwaves to talk about the phenomenon of unidentified flying objects and more. We want to hear your stories. Maybe you've seen what many others have seen. Only one way to find out, the AZ UFO Show on Sunday nights on the Spaced Out Radio Network on spacedoutradio.com.
Hi there, this is James Tyson, host of Spaced Out Weekends, and I know you're enjoying tonight's show with Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio. I just wanted to remind you that Spaced Out Radio continues on the weekends with me. On Spaced Out Weekend, we hit the airwaves at www.spacedoutradio.com starting at 10 p.m. Pacific, 1 a.m. Eastern. We have great guests with interesting chats regarding all things paranormal, supernatural, cryptozoological, and much, much more. So tune in to Spaced Out Weekend and give us a listen.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. With their money-back guarantee and the many benefits, how can you afford not to get one? Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com for mind, body, and spirit, and expect a miracle.
Need a break but don't have the time? Tired of life's running around? Hi, this is Jolene from Relaxation and Readings. Let me help you in your time of need. From Reiki to realm readings, I can help provide you therapy for your mind, body, and soul. Check out my website at rivuletrnr.wix.com/rivuletrnr. And if you're a listener of Spaced Out Radio, receive 10% off your first session. Rivulet Relaxation and Readings. And don't forget to give my Facebook page a like. It's time for you to make some important time for you.
The Spaced Out Radio Network can be found at spacedoutradio.com. Hi there, this is Dave Scott. Here you can join the latest on our weekly shows and news from around the world involving UFOs, cover-ups, cryptids, ghosts, and more. Read articles from our very talented staff and check out our weekly tarot card reading from psychic Catherine. You can also sign up for free on our forum and tell us about your experiences. SpacedOutRadio.com. Always live, always interactive.
The Webster Phenomena airs on Spaced Out Radio on Monday night at 8 p.m. Pacific Time. I'm your host, Patrick Webster Small, and I discovered extraterrestrials in the atmosphere, which led me to more discoveries, developing the Webster Phenomena, which is the occurrence of extraterrestrials throughout nature. I will explain the Webster Phenomena and all my recent discoveries every Monday night at 8 p.m. Pacific Time, right here on Spaced Out Radio.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Want to call in to Spaced Out Radio? You can. 1-607-203-5344. You can tweet us at Spaced Out Radio or send us a message on Facebook at Spaced Out Radio. And now, back to the show. Here's Dave Scott.
Welcome back to Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Thank you for being with us. Tomorrow night on the show, we will be talking with author Anthony Quinata. We'll be talking to the dead. That is tomorrow night on Spaced Out Radio. It'll be an interesting show indeed. Hey, if you want to follow us on social media, you can do so on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. You can also join our Facebook page, Spaced Out Radio Show, and our groups, Spaced Out Radio and Podcast Central. On Instagram, I can be followed at Dave Scott, SOR. Our YouTube channel is Spaced Out Radio Show. And, of course, our new look website is spacedoutradio.com. Tonight we bring in Edie Caito. We are talking her Bigfoot experiences. Now, the one thing, if you're just tuning in, that you need to understand, we have a lot of scientific researchers here on Bigfoot. Edie goes on a totally different tangent here, and it's working for her. She's getting contact almost on a daily basis when she goes out there. And it all has to do with trust and respect. So what does Bigfoot know that we don't? Edie, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
You're welcome.
I want to start off with a question from the Spaced Out Radio chat room from Jason in New York. What is one stereotype you would like to break of Bigfoot from your research that you have made?
The stereotype about Bigfoot that I think I would most like to break is that people automatically treat them like they are wild animals. They see them as wild animals. I have seen so many people get upset with people who do what I do, saying, "Oh, well, you can't leave things like that for them. They'll become dependent on you. And what if you stop? They're going to starve. And don't leave them sweets. You're going to rot their teeth. You're going to make them sick. You know, dogs can't have chocolate. What makes you think that Bigfoot can?" And the things that they're saying are really stupid to me, because if this creature is so intelligent that it can stay hidden from the public the way it does, build these mind-blowing shelters like the one that they have built, that where I moved my gifting site to, built it to where it literally in the spring and summer disappears into the landscape. You cannot see it at all. They were smart enough to build that. So do you think they're so dumb as they're going to rely on animal crackers and bottles of juice? Absolutely not. They are smart enough to realize that this is my way of saying, I want to know you, and I am trustworthy. I'm not going to hurt you. That is the biggest stereotype I want to break, because they are far, far more intelligent. They're not just your average woodland creature, as some people like to put.
I have a couple more questions from Jay Adams at Paranormal Forum. Do you keep your gifting site a secret? Because a lot of times when we have people starting to prove things like you are, government officials sometimes start to come around. Have you had any experiences with that?
No. So far I have not. I have kept it a secret. There are only, a very tight circle of people within the IBRO that know where it is. And I've, seen many hikers and mushroom hunters and stuff walk right past it and not see it. So I've been very lucky in that regard. But I guess I've never really worried as much about it. We've spoken to Department of Natural Resources out there. We have spoken to conservation officers, law enforcement. They know who we are. They know what we do. And most of them are either not telling us the full truth or they don't believe it all. So I'm not really concerned. I've heard stories of the men in the black, and in their black suits and their aviator glasses showing up. But I'm personally, at this point in time, I'm not concerned because this is a small state forest, and like I said, the DNR and people like that, they know who we are. Some of them kind of are like, yeah, I've heard things, but I can't talk. And the other ones are saying, nope, they're not here, nope. So I'm not really that concerned about it.
When I had my Bigfoot experience with the two Bigfoot, I never smelled anything. And yet we have a lot of people who have close encounters with Sasquatch who say that they smell a dirty, musty, very porous odor around them when Bigfoot is near. Have you had any experiences with the scent changing or smelling them?
No, I have not. As close as we have come to them and they have come to us, we have never had that. The only time we did was during one of our campouts, because we have annual campouts in the spring and in the fall. We had gone out in a pretty large group, and we had split up into two different groups. Myself and my husband and a friend had gone one direction, and a gentleman from Kentucky Bigfooters and some other people went another direction. And, of course, we heard movement in between us. So we were approaching one another, each other's groups, to say, hey, was that you? And they were saying the same thing to us because we heard speech. We heard it speak. And then I guess it had crossed right in between us, had gone down in the valley, and that's when we heard it screaming. So at that point in time, when we all kind of met in the middle, we did smell a horrific, it can only be described as the dirtiest, filthiest mattress that had been peed on over and over and over and over and over again. Personally, I feel in many ways it might be like a skunk. How a skunk will spray at a predator, that maybe they leave this scent if they feel like you're infringing on their territory. Maybe to kind of let you know that they're near when they don't want you there. I think it's just their kind of gentle way of doing it, without having to break off a branch and throw it at you, which we've had happen to us before when they did not want us hearing or seeing what it was that was going on.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that's what I believe about the smell. But, no, I have not, aside from that one incident, they have been very close to us. When my daughter and I were together, when she saw the elder, he was not far from us at all. And when he moved, we were literally just feet behind him and did not smell any lingering odor or anything.
It's almost like the smell is a defense mechanism, much like you said, a skunk.
That's what I'm thinking. Or should I say that's what I'm theorizing?
Either or works for me. I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Yeah, if I lived out in the forest like that, I don't think I would smell like a rose every day.
Edie, a lot of people don't know what a gifting site is. Explain to us what you are doing out in the forests of Indiana.
Okay. Basically what a gifting site is an area where you know that the Bigfoots are. You know that they're present by either structures or, you know, just the fact that maybe you've seen them pass through there or something like this. I chose an area that I know where they were. It was near a giant asterisk that was built, and I watched them over a course of a few months building this lean-to and bringing in broken off trees from other areas and propping them up and then taking still live trees and bending them into it and weaving it, watching this be built. So I knew that that was the perfect place because they were there all the time. So what I do is I take, I try to be as organic as possible with the fruits and the vegetables, and I like to leave the granola type bars, a lot of the fruit and nut bars and things like that, and drinks. And what it is, I have gotten the large plastic containers. I have two that are about shoebox size, and then I have one that's a little larger that has the lid that snaps on. I have buried this one about halfway down in the dirt, and then I have the lid on it. That is where I keep their food because I keep food separate from playthings. And I have the lid on that, and I also have two large bricks. And I kind of play around with glyphs, like putting, different formations of sticks on top, or I'll leave marbles on top and things like that. Then I have the two shoebox-sized ones that are sitting to the side. One has the children's toys, the ones that I know that the kids play with, like little cars, Christmas garland off of a tree, something really sparkly, a spoon, some shiny buttons, things like that. And then I have the other box, which contains like a hairbrush and other things that might, the adults might find of interest. And I leave everything in the containers with the containers closed, and with the other two have very large limestone rock on top of them. So it's not something that a small animal could come and open up on their own. There's only two things in that area that could open these, and that would be a human or a Sasquatch. So I do this. I have a light stick, and it's not the chemical kind. It's actually the kind that lights up with a battery. And every time I go in and I change out the food in their sight, or I leave them something new, or I tidy up, I turn the light on to the flashing pattern, and then I blow the whistle 3 times to let them know I've been there. And, what started out as something that, I thought I might try has turned into, a year and a half of just absolute wonder and amazement in watching them come and take these things. It's exciting to set up and then go back the following week to see if they've taken anything and how they've left things. And, I know by the things that they've taken and the wrappers and the things that they have left that there is one that's very tidy and there's one that's a mess that just likes to throw things everywhere. But there's one that is so neat and tidy that they'll open up the box that these miniature pies come in. They'll eat the pie, completely lick this little pie tin clean, and then slide it back in the box and put the box down. The other one will just take the box, rip it in half, eat the pie, and then just toss everything. so I'm seeing distinct personalities with how things are eaten, how things are torn open, and how they're left. And that is what thrills me a lot, is seeing the different personalities.
Do you believe then that it is a Bigfoot family in your area, or do you believe it is solitary creatures that are wandering around like nomads?
Oh, it's a family. No doubt in my mind that there's a family. We have seen, of course, we've seen the big man, as we call him. We actually call him Big Boy because of his size and his voice, because one of the recordings we have of him actually speaking to us, that his voice is so loud and so booming, you can just tell he has to be massive in size. My daughter, the one she saw, is an elder, obviously. He was silver, white, kind of gray all over. And he was a bit smaller. And then we have seen the juvenile, who is solid black. He likes to run back and forth on one of the game trails to where I can see the top of his head, and he'll dart back and forth. And he's the one that likes to get behind our tent and run around and scurry around and scream. And I think he really enjoys doing that. He likes trying to get us riled up, to get us to jump around and shine our flashlight that way. I think he really enjoys that. And we do know that there is a baby. And I mean baby as in what we would consider a toddler. We're saying the age of 3-4 years old at the most. Because last winter, we had found, of course, an adult footprint in the snow, but we had found these small footprints. And I'm thinking, why in God's name would anybody let their toddler out here in the snow? But we noticed that the big toe on the left foot was larger and more pronounced, almost like deformed. And so, we took some pictures of the footprints and just decided, well, maybe they do have a baby. But last spring, my daughter and I were out, and I was taking photographs for my book. And we were in an area that very adjacent to an open area where there are power lines, which they say that they tend to use those areas. And we were over here. I was taking some pictures because there were some really cool tree bends over there. And I'm feeling the ground is very uneven, and we had a very, very muddy period. And so I'm like, these are footprints. And I couldn't find any really good. But then I turned around and I looked down, and there was a baby footprint with the same big toe. And it was about, I'd say, 1.5 to 2 inches bigger than what we had seen in the winter. So it had grown. But we knew it was the same one because of the big toe. So, yes, there is definitely a baby. So we know of the elder, we know of Big Boy, we know of the juvenile, we know of the baby, and obviously we're assuming there's a mother, and we hear her a lot. But no one has ever reported seeing her.
How do you tell the difference between the sounds? Have you heard them enough now to be able to distinguish the juvenile from the baby, from the mother to the father?
Yes. Yeah, we have heard them enough. We've recorded them enough that when I hear Big Boy, I know it's him, because we have that recording of him talking to us, and it's the craziest thing you would ever hear in your life, to hear this thing, this language that it's using. And it's talking to us, and it sounds so sad that we're leaving. It was almost like, hey, guys, don't go. Don't leave yet. And he just talked and talked and talked. So his voice is unmistakable to me, unmistakable. As far as the juvenile, he squeals like a delighted kid. Like if you've ever been around teenagers when they get to that age where they're all screaming and they're laughing and they're loud and they're obnoxious, it's exactly what he sounds like. The female has a very smooth tone to her voice. Her howls are distinctive. They're very long, almost musical. They remind me very much of the recordings that people have of the Ohio Howler. She sounds very much like that. The baby, I don't think we've heard. If we have, we may not have noticed. We may have thought maybe it was a fox or something like that. So, I'm not really sure, but I can very well distinguish a male from a female from the juvenile.
Getting back to your gifting site for a moment, you use organic-only food. Why choose organic? Okay, so is there a difference, or has this Bigfoot family noticed a difference between, say, regular bananas that you buy at the supermarket compared to organic bananas or something along those lines?
I don't think so. I mean, with them being in a state park, that does have a lot of family areas, a lot of campgrounds and things like that, if they want to go scavenging for sweets, they can very well find them. So I just feel better that I'm not introducing a bunch of chemicals to them, if that makes sense. So I try to get things with no preservatives if it's not an actual quote-unquote organic product, simply because I just don't feel it's right since they live in the forest, whether, like I said, I don't see them as wild animals. I see them more as closer to human beings. So I'm not as worried about what they can digest. It's just that, they're not eating the same kind of foods that we are. So I feel better by giving them things that are more organic or that don't have those crazy preservatives and such in there. But I do give them treats on occasion. Like if it's Christmas, at Christmas time I did leave some candy, and I left a Christmas ornament that was motion activated that sang, which that disappeared immediately because it had a human voices, a choir singing "We Wish You a Merry Christmas." That disappeared. I did later find it, which they broke it open, I guess, trying to figure out where the voices were coming from and how it worked. But yeah, I try to be careful with what I leave them. I'm not going to just constantly leave them candy and cookies and such, but they do get treats, special things, and I think they know that. I think they know they're special.
Going back to Paranormal Forum, Jay Adams has another question for you. Have you noticed if Bigfoot responds to certain colors?
To certain colors? No, that I've not noticed. It really doesn't seem to make a difference. Like when I pick out, say, a ball or a toy to leave, I do think about color. I think about, the last one I left was blue. I think I'm going to get a bright orange one this time. But I really haven't seen them. It doesn't really seem to make a difference with them, with colors at all. I think they know what they like. They like balls. They like stuffed toys. They like shiny, sparkly things. And it's just, I've not seen them differentiate and tend to like. I mean, they have foods that they like. They definitely have preferences for, but I haven't noticed anything as far as color.
You mentioned, and I want to continue this, we only got a couple minutes before we got to go to break here at the bottom of the hour, about 2 minutes. But you mentioned that your husband and your daughter have had sightings. Have you ever had a sighting?
I have not had a full-on sighting of seeing the whole body. Like I said, I've seen the little one. I've seen his head. I've seen him moving back and forth. And I've heard them. They have come very, very close to me before. But they have not shown themselves to me. And I don't know why. I don't know if they want this to be special or what, but I know they trust me. I know they trust me, and I trust them. We are at that point. But I know they will when they feel it's the right time.
That is excellent. We are talking with Edie Caito tonight on Spaced Out Radio. She is a Bigfoot researcher. Her book, Indiana Bigfoot, The Beautiful Mind, can be found at Amazon.com. We have literally about 10 seconds before we need to go to break, so we're going to hop out a little bit early here. When we come back, we're going to learn more about the trust that Edie has developed with Bigfoot in Indiana. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott. We'll be right back after our final break of the night.
Want to find out what's coming up on the Spaced Out Radio Network? Go to spacedoutradio.com, where you can find our daily list of shows and guests appearing throughout the week. Want to tell us your story? Be sure to sign up for the Spaced Out Forum for free. Maybe you have a psychic question. Drop in and say hi to Catherine in Cat's Corner. spacedoutradio.com, your 24-hour source for UFOs, ghosts, conspiracies, and more. Check it out today.
Are you one of many who's had a UFO or ET experience? Listen up. The AZ UFO show is on every Sunday night at 7 on the Spaced Out Radio Network. We talk about UFO sightings across the globe, conspiracy theories, government cover-ups, and more with me, Rich Giordano. I want you to know what's going on in the skies above you, so tune in to the AZ UFO show on Spaced Out Radio Network, on spacedoutradio.com, right before Spaced Out Weekend. Our show is literally out of this world.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. With their money-back guarantee and the many benefits, how can you afford not to get one? Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com for mind, body, and spirit, and expect a miracle.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Brand new discovery beats NASA. This is Patrick Webster Small bringing you the Webster Phenomena every Monday night at 8 p.m. And you know what we're going to do? We're going to talk about amazing stuff, have amazing guests. That's all there is, man. You know the rest. There's ETs up in the sky. I'm going to tell you which way and why. And we're going to have a little combo about these ETs in the sky. We're going to chill. This is Patrick Webster Small, and I'll be seeing you every Monday night at 8 p.m. Pacific Time. Write it down on Spaced Out Radio.
Is the 24-hour world starting to wear you down? Let me from Rivulet Reiki and Ratings lend you a hand. Hi, this is Jolene, and if you're in need of Reiki or a realm reading, come to my website, rivuletrr.wix.com/rivuletrr, and let us help you out. At Rivulet, I specialize in healing your body, mind, and soul, no matter where you are. And be sure to check out the Rivulet R&R Facebook page for your best deals. Remember, it's time for you to make some time for you.
Hi there, this is Jim Tyson, host of Spaced Out Weekend. When you've had a busy week and you're just wanting to chill out and relax, how about listening into my show? That's right, Spaced Out Weekend. I focus on the paranormal, the arcane. I even dip into the techie side of things and much, much more. And I would love for you to come in and check it out. Remember, Spaced Out Radio goes 7 days a week. Dave Scott, Monday through Friday, and me, Jim Tyson, rolling through the weekends. I look forward to having you stop by for a listen every Saturday and Sunday night, 1 a.m. Eastern, 10 p.m. Pacific, only on Spaced Out Radio.
Missed most of tonight's show? Don't worry, you didn't miss a thing. You can head to our website, where you can download the podcast at spacedoutradio.com. Now, back to tonight's show. Here's Dave Scott.
Tomorrow night on the show, we are going to be talking with Anthony Kenyatta. He is an author. He is owner of Harold the Haunted Doll, and we're going to be talking about his latest book, Talking to the Dead. That is tomorrow night on Spaced Out Radio. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. We have had the privilege of talking to Edie Caito tonight, a Bigfoot researcher out of Indiana. Her latest book, Indiana Bigfoot, The Beautiful Mind. We are going to bring Edie back on momentarily. Before we do, I want to remind all of you that you can tune in to us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. You can also ask to join our Spaced Out Radio group as well as Podcast Central. On Instagram, I can be followed at Dave Scott, SOR. Our YouTube channel, which will have all of our archives on there soon, is Spaced Out Radio Show. And, of course, our new look website is spacedoutradio.com. For the final time tonight, we bring in Edie Caito. You can find her book, Indiana Bigfoot, The Beautiful Mind, on Amazon.com. This is probably, Edie, I'm going to say, the best interview that I have had in regards to Bigfoot in all of the Bigfoot shows that I have done, because most of the shows that I deal with are so hardcore scientific on the creature that you're really, for lack of a better term, bringing a real human experience to this creature that many of us don't even believe exists, let alone has a personality like you have been able to establish. I got to thank you for coming on Spaced Out Radio, and I have to thank Dino from Paranormal Into the Night for basically telling me I had to get you on the air.
Well, I really, really appreciate it, and I am enjoying myself, and I do love sharing these stories. Because my book, in and of itself, are stories. I do go a little bit into the history of Bigfoot from the Native Americans and what some people believe, but a majority, I'd say 99% of my book are stories. They're all personal experiences my husband and I have had, that my daughter had, just crazy adrenaline rush kind of stuff while we were just kind of gaining our footing, and I was learning to not fear these beings, to see them as beings and not creatures, to realize how intelligent they were, and finally getting to that point where I was no longer afraid of them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what my book is kind of our journey and finding our way through. And you can tell that there's a lot of bumbling and craziness that we've been through getting to the point where we are now. And it's been a crazy ride, but it's been a lot of fun. It's so interesting. Like I said, it's just so exciting and thrilling to be interacting with them the way they have chosen to interact with me. And I didn't tell you this story, that they had asked for my help once without having to verbalize it by leaving me an arrow. And I couldn't figure out, I thought, well, maybe they just found it. They thought, well, cool, she's human. This is a human thing. I'll give it to her. That day, when my husband and I were hiking, we found 2 illegal deer stands that were in the area where what they call inside the safety zone. 2 deer stands up in trees, and we were able to report them. They were immediately taken down and confiscated. And I do believe that was their way of saying, hey, will you help us?
That makes sense. That makes total sense in regards to what we are talking about tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they are an interactive creature, like we believe, we would totally be able to see and understand that when they have a danger, that they will take that trust that they have gained to you and send you that feeling or that message.
Mm-hmm. I do, and also, with those tree stands being there where they were, it's a danger to humans, and I kind of saw it as a way of them protecting us as well,
You know what? I had a conversation the other day with Bigfoot researcher Lyle Blackburn. I don't know if you're familiar with who he is.
No, I'm not.
He's going to be on the show on April 7th. And one of the stories he told me was down in Texas and in Louisiana, in that area, they have a very big problem in the swamps with feral hogs. And he actually had a report and followed up a report from a hunter who was hunting feral hogs. And he had lured the hogs into this area. And he set his sights on shooting one of the biggest hogs until something caught the corner of his eye. And this hunter explained that all of a sudden this Bigfoot came out of nowhere, picked up this 300-400 pound hog, slammed it against a tree, killing it instantly. And right before he picked it up to carry the hog off, the Sasquatch, who hadn't made eye contact with the hunter at all, as the hunter was being silent, all of a sudden turned his head, looked up to the hunter, bared his teeth, grabbed the hog, and walked away.
To me, that's like somebody walking into my kitchen, getting in my refrigerator, and taking my food. That's the way I see it. I believe that's the way that the Bigfoots view the hunters. You're coming into my house and you're taking my food. I don't like it.
I can totally understand that as well. Tell me about the sighting that your daughter had.
Well, even with her, and the gifts that she, was given, she didn't believe in Bigfoot, even though, the things that her father and I had told her, and, she had even witnessed how my gifting site would change, and she'd heard the recordings, which kind of scared the bejeebers out of her. But we were going back to the area one day, and we were coming up the gravel road, and I heard a big ruckus back behind the restrooms that they have out there. And I was like, what the heck? And I heard all this noise and everything, and I'm looking to see what is down there, what's breaking trees and crashing and making all this noise. And all of a sudden I hear my daughter go, what the SHIT? And I'm like, I don't know what. She goes, no, what that? And she's pointing, and her mouth is just kind of hanging open. And I'm like, what did you see? And she goes, I have no idea. And I'm like, well, what was it? Was it a coyote? Was it a deer? She said, no. And I'm like, well, what was it? She goes, I have no idea. And it reminded me so much of what her dad went through. And so we, immediately just that conversation took seconds. And it just happened so quickly that, we went after it. And it was gone. It was gone. But this thing, it was, like she said, it was all gray. She was measuring it to be between 6 and 7 feet tall. And she said it rose up back first. She said because it was leaning against a log like it was in the sun. And it raised up back first, looked over its shoulder, looked straight into her eyes, and then dove over the log. It was from that moment on. Yeah,
go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead.
How close do you think you are to your face-to-face interaction with them? Are you there? Yes, I am.
Are you there? Hello?
Yeah. Yes, I am. Can you hear me? Because I can hear you.
Yeah, I can hear you. I'm trying to grab an extra phone because I believe my phone is trying to die.
Oh, goodness.
And I don't know where the other phone is. I can't find it.
Oh, goodness.
Nonetheless, I don't want to interrupt the show, but if I can jump off of this one and call immediately back on my cell, will that work?
You do that.
Okay.
I will await your phone call.
I will be right back, everybody. Talk amongst yourselves. I will be right back.
Edie, do me a favor. When you hop back on, press 1. Press 1 so that way I know it's you. Okay?
Okay, will do.
All right. We are talking with Edie Caito tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Her phone is dying, so we are going to get her to change phones to finish up the interview tonight. Her book, which can be found on Indiana Bigfoot, or make that on Amazon.com, is Indiana Bigfoot, The Beautiful Mind. The one thing I love about this story with Edie is the fact that it's so humanizing. You know, we're not hearing the same scientific research of going into the mountains, setting game cameras up, maybe using a drone, setting up rocks in formation, you know, banging trees, calling out sounds and whooping. You know, we all hear the whoop, whoop type thing. We're not hearing that. We're hearing genuine information tonight regarding a sighting and multiple sightings that she has taken to build trust with the animals. And I think, as Edie comes back onto the show here.
Yep, I'm here.
Okay. And I think this is probably some of the most crucial evidence that we have heard on Spaced Out Radio in our 16, 17 months on the air that we have had regarding Bigfoot. I really do believe that. And, Edie, you deserve to be commended for the way you are approaching this. Because for people who don't know or are tuning in late, you don't have a scientific background in this. 3 years ago, you didn't know Bigfoot exists, and now you're having multiple communication with them, almost to the point where they are talking to you.
Yeah, pretty much. It's exciting. It's exciting, and like I said, it's just every time I go back to the gifting site and I see something has been taken or something's been manipulated, or they have, you know, taken a ball that's been gone for 2 months and it appears back in the gifting site. I feel like a kid at Christmas. It's very exciting for me, and I think they pick up on that. I really do. I think they get just as excited for me being excited. And I think that's why they still continue to do things and listen to me and leave me gifts and things like that. I mean, I have all the things that they have given me. I have them, you know, right here on my television stand where I can see them. You know, the arrow, the morel mushrooms, the piece of wood that's been, you know, rubbed and rubbed and rubbed until it's been turned into a triangle, and the deer antler. And I treasure the things that they give me.
Mm-hmm. Edie, I have a question for you. I know we haven't taken any phone calls tonight, but one of the listeners who is of First Nations descent and has had multiple interactions with Bigfoot himself and as well as his family, his name is Roz. He's from Paranormal Forum chat room. Do you mind if we bring him on? Because he kind of wanted to chat with you.
No, absolutely not. Sure.
Okay, let's bring Roz on now. Roz, how are you?
Oh, doing good. How are you guys doing?
Very good.
We're good.
Very good.
First of all, I want to say thank you, because you do see and respect how Indians / Native Americans respect and give back to Bigfoot, because, you know, a lot of people look at it as a joke or something that is just, you know, I don't want to say make-believe, but, you know, just because we live in that world where you have to have proof, it's really tough. But the stories I've heard tonight from you, reminded me of the things I've heard from my parents, grandparents, cousins, uncles. It's really, you know, they were just like, you know, I don't want to say they weren't scared, but they felt in awe and honored that they saw the Bigfoot, and it just kind of acknowledged them. My grandpa, he always told me whenever we go fishing down the river, we always leave a fish out for the Bigfoot. And he told me, you know, when he was a child, him and his cousins were catching catfish, and catfish can breathe out of water for hours at a time. And back then, they didn't have a stringer to put the catfish on or anything like that. But they would throw them on the banks of the river, and they would eventually die after being there for a couple of hours without oxygen. And they were catching catfish. You know, it was a good run. And they looked to the east, to the southeast of the river, and they said they saw a Bigfoot coming up. And so they all ran off and just took off. You know, they were kids. They were scared. And after that time, anytime they went fishing down around that area, they always left one or two catfish for the Bigfoots, you know, just like as offerings, like, hey, we know you're here. You appear to us and let us see you, and that we're just leaving you. I don't look at it as a peace offering, but as just like respect and acknowledgement. You know, just saying, you know, you're here, and we're leaving this for you. And then when you say we're talking about the gifting place earlier, that's what I thought. I was like, oh, my grandpa, you know, because they can look out and they see wherever you're fishing, they know it. You know, they know the fishing spots. They know where the fish are at. They know where the deer and the game are coming at. And a lot of people don't realize when you go deer hunting or hunting for game, you don't take a shower. You don't get cleaned. You don't put on cologne, perfume, or deodorant because you're wanting to smell like you belong in nature. Yeah. And that's one of the things I was like, oh, my goodness. And I was like, you know, of all the people I've heard talk about Bigfoot and want to explain all this and that, I was like, this lady gets it. She understands. We don't want to kill them. They've never killed any of us. We respect them. We acknowledge them. We live among them. They live among us. And one of the big things where my grandfather lived, to the day we buried him, he was born and died within 2 miles of his house. He never had running water. He had electricity. He never had a telephone line. He died in the late 2000s. And we'd go out there. When we buried him, I checked my phone, never had a cell phone signal. And where it's our original allotment from what the government gave us, you know, from the Indian Removal Acts. My family's part of the Trail of Tears, and there are a lot of stories behind that. I'm not going to get into them. But where he lived, you know, that was where he was born and raised, basically within a 2-mile radius. And he always told me at night, don't look at the window at night. And I asked him why. He goes, because you don't know what's looking back at you. You know, there were a few times the Bigfoots would come up to the house, and he would tell me, I guess he could smell them or maybe know or sense, you know, that something was going to happen. He would tell me, he's like, we need to go to bed early. And then we talk about he would tell me, and I was like, oh, okay, you know, and I'd go to sleep early. And he would, I guess, maybe put out some offerings for them. But it really, really, you know, impacted me to where, to this time, I don't like to look out the window after dark because he always told me, you don't know what's looking back at you. And my family is less than 30 yards behind our house because we buried our family where our family allotment was. And so it's just like we keep them close to us because that's our family. I could go out to our cemetery and feel like, oh, you know, I'm talking to my grandmother. I'm talking to my aunts, talking to my uncles. Death wasn't looked at as a bad thing. You know, just because they're not here with us doesn't mean they're there. There's times where I smell my grandmother's perfume, and she loved bacon, and she would love to make a bacon sandwich. That was her favorite. And when we buried my grandmother, we put a bacon sandwich in her coffin. It's like, here, Grandma, we know this is what you're going to want. And, you know, it's just one of those things. We don't fear death. We're not scared of it. But of all the Bigfoot people that I've heard, you get it. You respect it. And I don't know if you're Native American or not, but
I am actually.
Well, I'm glad you are, because I appreciate the way you talked about it. It's not, we're not scared of it. We respect it. It's one of those things. It was just like when you were talking about, the baby earlier. It reminded me of the last scene of Harry and Henderson, that movie John Lithgow did back in the 80s. They're released Harry back to the wild, and the family stands up, and you're like, oh my goodness, so you see them but you don't see them, or you don't see them but you see them. It's just really, one of those things, and that's what I tell my friends. I'm like, just because you do things, try to save the earth, you try to recycle, you're not getting back to nature. You need to be in nature. You need to get in tune with Mother Nature. I love walking around there. I love laying in the grass. I love staring at the stars, because I feel like that gets me back in harmony. That gets me back into where, just in tune, and I lay there and I feel the things Mother Nature feels, and it makes me hurt. And I'm just like, okay, well, this is what we need to do to try to get things corrected. But my friends were, some of my friends were laughing every time, because it's 12:30 at night, and I was outside spraying for wasps, spraying for spiders. They're like, why don't you use poison? I said, because I'm not going to poison them. I'm not going to kill them for doing something that is natural to them. I just don't want them around my house. I don't want them around my perimeter, so I was spraying peppermint oil. And peppermint oil drives away wasps and spiders. And that was just one of the things, I don't want them bothering me. A lot of the things that I have known and learned were passed down. And that's why I'm so grateful for, like just natural remedies to help get rid of the problem or alleviate the problem where they don't bother you. And in stories tonight, I was just like, oh my goodness, she gets it. She understands. They are there. And, I hate to say it, but me and my cousins, we were having some adult beverages around a bonfire one night, and we were talking, and it's just kind of like we looked at Bigfoot as not a thing of a pest or a nuisance, but, kind of just like he's there, we acknowledge it, we appreciate it, and when we're messing up and when we're doing something wrong, that they will basically show up and let us know, hey, they're not going to say it, they're not going to speak it, but when we see them, we're like, okay, we're not doing things right. We need to get back to nature. We need to get back into what we grew up with and what we were shown to do. And so it's kind of like, I guess, getting too big for your britches and realize that, you need to get in trouble from time to time. And that's how we look at it.
Hey, Roz, can I jump in here and just ask you a quick question?
Yes, sir.
As someone with a First Nations background like you have, how refreshing is it to hear what I like to call the Caucasian Christian scientific investigation of Bigfoot thrown out the window with what Edie is doing? As you say, it's the proper way to make a connection with Sasquatch. How does that make you feel? That's
exactly why I called in, because I listen to a lot of Bigfoot shows, specials, things you see on TV. A lot of them want to kill it, and I've told my friends, and I've told everybody, I will not shoot it. I will not do anything to harm it, because it's coexisted with us for this long. Why should I be the person to make it, I don't want to say famous, but to prove it? We've coexisted for so long. I believe in it. My family believes in it. My stepdad, he finally admits seeing one, because his mother grew up in a church environment. And I posted a picture a couple of nights ago about a catfish that he caught, and he finally admitted to seeing one to me, to people who are his family but just friends. He will say he saw something, but to the family, he finally admitted, I saw a Bigfoot. And it was about a 40, 50-pound catfish. I posted a picture on Paranormal Forums. Thanks for the shout-out anyway. And my mom and my cousin were with him. And my mom, she had seen him when she was a child. And my cousin was finally happy to see one and acknowledge one. My stepdad, he doesn't talk about it because he was like, I'm not disrespecting people who were raised in a church, but he was raised in a church, and he doesn't talk about it. It's just one of those things that he's like, well, I don't know what it was. This is unexplainable. And he's full-blood Native American as well.
Roz,
yes,
I hate to cut you off, but I got to get back to Edie here, and I have to close out the show because unfortunately we only got a couple minutes left. But thank you so much for calling in.
I was glad to get in. You have a good night, and tell Edie thank you very much for appreciating everything.
Absolutely. And we bring Edie back into Spaced Out Radio. Edie, thank you so much, and I really do appreciate you coming on the show. When is your next book coming out on your Bigfoot experiences?
I can't say exactly when, but it'll probably be right around the time the last book came out. So it'll probably be probably closer to the end of summer when I'll be releasing it. I'm to the point now where I've gotten enough experiences and things written down that have happened to where I can, fully write another good book that people will really enjoy sitting down and reading, which is the experience I've had with the first book, especially with men, because, I know a lot of men who just don't like to read, but they've sat down with my book and said, this is the first thing I've read since college or high school, and I loved it. So I really want the second book to have that same feel, to where anybody can pick it up and feel like I'm not saying, pounding my fist saying, it exists, listen to me. I'm just sharing my story and the things that we have been through and the experiences we've had.
How do you stay so humble with all of this? Because a lot of people would be calling the national media in what you've had.
I've had some remarkable things happen to me in my lifetime, and like I was saying, the whole paranormal story that I'm actually writing about now was quite crazy, absolutely phenomenally crazy. But I just feel like it's just me, it's just me. I'm just a regular person. I'm a mom. I'm a grandmother, soon to be a grandmother for the third time. And
nice.
I'm just a regular person, and I got into this, and I found a way that worked for me to research because, I don't feel that these creatures should be drug out of the forest and experimented on. And, I enjoy doing what I'm doing. So I guess I'm just a humble person.
Edie, we are going to have to bring you back on again because we're out of time tonight. I know we did not capture all of the information that we needed to capture, so I'm going to get Corey, my booking coordinator, to get in touch with you again and look to bring you back on when we have an opening in May.
Fantastic. I will do that, and I will make sure that I find my other phone and have it ready just in case.
Edie, thank you so much for being on Space Out Radio tonight. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed myself.
Awesome. Thank you.
Do you have a topic or guest you'd like to hear on Spaced Out Radio? Email us, dave@spacedoutradio.com. Send us a quick message on Twitter @SpacedOutRadio, or a message on our Facebook page, Spaced Out Radio. Once again, here's Dave Scott.
And once again, we want to thank Edie Caito for joining us and telling her Bigfoot stories and experiences that are happening in the state of Indiana. Her book, Indiana Bigfoot, The Beautiful Mind. It'll open up your mind to what Bigfoot is all about. I highly suggest you pick up this book. You can find it at Amazon.com. Get it today. Edie Caito, thank you so much. We're going to bring her back on in May. That is a promise to you guys because we didn't even tip the surface here of her experiences. Tomorrow night on the show, Anthony Quinata. He's going to be talking to the dead. What's it like? What's it about? That's tomorrow night on Spaced Out Radio. I will be back in exactly 22 hours. You will be back to listen, at least I hope. And we'll do it all again. We'll talk to you tomorrow night. Thank you so much for being with us. At Spaced Out Radio on Twitter if you want to follow us there. Have a great night. Go to bed. It's late. Good night.